Live from the Motor City, all the way to the Volunteer State. It's time for the Reckless Speculation Podcast, where we recklessly speculate the latest news in the world of sports. From college football to NASCAR, we've got you covered. And don't forget to stick around for the world-famous Bet Your Nuts, where we will give you your best bets to make the most money. Now sit back, grab your favorite drink of choice, and join Robbie Davis, Raj Mehta, Brandon Chain, and Tom Sloan. It's showtime.
Welcome to Reckless Speculation. I'm Robbie Davis. Here tonight, and the first time in a long time wearing my glasses. I don't know if I have a bit of pink eye or an eye infection or something going on, but I have my glasses on. They're a little crooked, so you'll see me trying to adjust them to keep them straight all night. But thank you for joining us. We're going to be here. Our format's to keep it under an hour. You can take a walk with the podcast, or you can drink for an hour like we're going to do tonight. But anyways, thank you for joining us. We're going to be talking about the Volunteers basketball and their losing their point guard, talk a little bit about Alabama basketball, some of the bubble watch. We're going to get into the MLB rules changes, how that's going to affect the game, and then the Bears' #1 pick, and possibly my favorite, if we get to it, some NASCAR. But before we get into all that, I want to introduce our team. First of all, we have my longtime buddy, Brandon Chain. Brandon, how are you?
Doing great, man. Doing great. Excited to talk a little sports tonight, even though it's kind of a down sports season, but we do have college basketball ramping up. So
we do. And Brandon has the Reckless Speculation hat on. We are working on some swag, and we will be having those out soon. Maybe a weekly poll question or trivia questions, give some away. And then in Michigan, Tom Sloan.
Good evening, fellas. How we doing?
We're doing well. We have, I assume, some late arrivals that'll be joining us. I don't know if they're here yet. I can only see what I can see.
He has not made it to the green room, unfortunately.
Well, before we get to sports, I think there's something that is that just needs to be talked about. So for those of you who don't know, prior to this past weekend, Brandon, Tom, and myself, so Brandon and myself had never met Tom in real life. Brandon and I know each other, but Tom and us did not. So Tom came down to Tennessee, and Tom, tell us about your visit. Well, it was a blizzard or a ice storm in Michigan. Yeah. You come down to Tennessee. It was unseasonably warm down here. So tell us about Tennessee. What were your expectations, the thoughts once you got here, and your takeaways? And then we have obviously a story to tell at the end.
Well, I'm familiar with Tennessee, being that I have some family down in the Knoxville area. So I'm pretty familiar with it. So, yep. I mean, anybody that was listening or watching last week knew that there was a power issue, and we lost power a couple of times. Hopefully it didn't affect the show too much. So with that being said, we hit the road on Thursday morning and got into Chattanooga. It was about 6:30, and no sooner did we get out of the car, we get a call from our good buddy Rich Jasper and saying, hey, we don't have power. So it goes all day, no power. So now we're concerned, and so we get everything squared away, and we hit the town, and we had a good night on Thursday night, had a nice dinner. Then Friday we get up early. We're in Chattanooga downtown, and Brandon meets up with us, and then we go over and we meet Randall, and all is good. And we go back and go out to dinner, and then I get a call that I was not looking forward to hearing. So in the meantime, we set up a situation to where we had a friend of ours go and pick up our dog, because we were concerned about no power. It's going to be too cold, just not a comfortable situation for us. So we set up a situation where Our friend's going to pick the dog up, whatever. So Friday night, they go to take her outside, and she gets spooked and pulls out of her collar and takes off running. So they wait about an hour and a half before they call, because they were trying to, see if they could get her, but unfortunately they couldn't. So he makes the call, and so we're sitting at dinner, and I see who's calling, and I'm like, uh-oh. They have a pretty big dog themselves, so we thought that maybe there was an incident where they got into a fight. Well, that wasn't the case. She gets off her collar and takes off running. So needless to say, that put an end to my Tennessee trip. Unfortunately, the wife and I got in the car, drove 9 hours straight through, got back to Michigan Saturday morning around 8:30. Started the search, and unfortunately, here we are, day 6, and she still isn't home. The encouraging factor here is that she's been spotted several times. She has not gone too far away from where she took off from. So we have an individual from this area that is working with us. They're called the South Lyon Murphy Dog Recovery Group. They're amazing people, and they basically volunteer their time and efforts to go out and try to recover dogs, and they do this all on a donation base. They don't charge, but obviously this is going to be a donation. So she's on the scene, and we're very thankful. And she has a list of rules that we're not allowed to break, and they're pretty strict. So it's tough. And one of the rules is we're not allowed to go out looking for her. And that for the wife and I, that's probably the toughest thing to deal with. Her being out there, not being able to, go and look for her. So we're trusting the process, and, hopefully within the next day or two, we can recover her. Got a huge snowstorm coming tomorrow. We're expected 8 inches to 12 inches of snow. So, not a very comforting situation, but the woman is very adamant that the elements don't affect her. So I'm trusting her, and hopefully we'll by next show we'll have good news. But definitely something to follow. And unfortunately, it caused an abrupt end to what would have been a really fun weekend of Tennessee baseball and basketball. But obviously, duty calls when you got, I don't have children of my own, so that she's like a daughter to me. So that was get in the car and just go. So it's been a pretty rough week.
Yeah, it's always tough to have a dog missing like that. Do y'all remember the movie with Mel Gibson when his daughter gets kidnapped or his son gets kidnapped, and they're like, don't pay the ransom, then he goes off on his own and tries to
Ransom.
There we go. What a obvious title to that movie.
Yeah.
I want to say, I'm not gonna say if it's good or not, because I remember it kind of. I don't remember if it's probably not that good, but anyways. Raj, welcome. Only 11 minutes late tonight, so
hey, this one was actually fairly justifiable. I don't know what it is about people driving in the rain, especially actually being from California, they're worse. But people in Tennessee, like, it just washes away their brains. And with full-blown non-physical road rage, I lost my mind. So that's why I'm late. But
didn't you text us you were home like a half hour ago, though?
No, I said I was going to be home in 5 minutes, but then there was an accident and I spoke too soon.
Oh, boy.
Yeah. So
you should have thrown them my cards.
And then I'm like, no, your billboard was right in front of us, so we're good.
There we go. Well, Tom, we all we've been checking in on you and keeping up with the dog update, and later we will try to get that company or that charity or that organization's information, see if we can't do a little bit to help them out. That sounds like a great cause.
Oh, they're great. Yep, for sure.
But it was good meeting you and your wife, and
it was awesome.
We had a good 30 hours in Tennessee.
It was a whirlwind, that's for sure.
Yeah, Tom was actually real. It was he's just a picture on a screen is all I've known. So
it it was fun while it lasted, and then it didn't. So, but I'll be back for sure. I'm looking forward to that.
If you do, bring your dog next time, dude.
Yeah, I have a fence. Yeah,
I will for sure.
I've got a fence too.
From one Tennessee story to another. Saturday, the Vols. Well, the game Tom was supposed to get to against South Carolina seemed to be a get-right game for the Volunteers, having Josiah Jordan-James back, and their offense seems to be clicking. They had a 40-point win again against South Carolina. Things seem to be going in the right direction, but then it wasn't. Tuesday night, the Vols played a hot Arkansas team, a good Arkansas team, but beat them by 30, 32, whatever I can't remember what the point spread was, or the point total was now. But 3 minutes into the game, Zakai Ziegler goes down, a non-contact play. Those of us, well, everyone watching us tonight knows what that means in sports. It's usually an ACL. It has been confirmed to be an ACL, which means Ziegler, the Vols' really only true point guard, is now done for the season, probably missed early next season. Is Tennessee basketball cursed? I don't know, but man, it sure hurts. Raj, you're as big as a college basketball fan as I am. You sometimes get forced to watch more Vols action than you do. What does this do to the expectations for the Volunteers without a true point guard and really the best offensive player now is going to have to play point guard? I mean, what do you think happens?
And first, let me say, I like Volunteer basketball because I love Rick Barnes. He's a true basketball coach. And Tennessee basketball fans are diehard. They're loyal. They're grounded. Whereas the football fans think they're winning the title every year, even when they're 2-38 the year before. But to answer your question, it ends them. It really does. I hate to say that because I like Meshack and a guy that's going to get more playing time. But like you said, Ziegler is their only true point guard. He's the only guy that can create his own shot. He's the only guy that can get into the lane and off that first step, penetrate and kick. He is easily their best man defender. In fact, a semifinalist for the National Defensive Player of the Year. He's a 3-star kid from Long Island who came to the South, and he is the inspirational leader of that team. He is the inspirational leader of that program. And in fact, Rick Barnes called him the DNA of their program. If that's not enough, you know, when you look at their best wins, which they're a great team, they're the #1 defensive team in the country. And like I said, this is their best defender, man or otherwise. Even in zone on rotation, he leads the country in steals, he's tops on their team in steals. You look at their biggest wins against Kansas. I wrote it down. He had 14 points and 4 steals. Against Texas, he had 22 points and 10 assists, and those were both wins. And then in the win against Bama, he had 15 points, 8 assists, and most importantly, 0 turnovers. I can guarantee you when they lost, like against Kentucky, he was keyed upon. Kentucky can match up well with their little point guard Wheeler. So it's everything, man. Like, who knows? Somebody could go Wally Zerbiak or Carmelo Anthony and just go nuts. But that's their true point. That's their best defender and the only guy that can create his own shot off the dribble or otherwise. That's tough, man. That's real tough.
Yeah, I agree. And I think you saw the second half against Arkansas. Yeah, this team is good enough to play well for a half or for a game. But without him running the show, without him pestering the other team, it's just not, you just can't win in March 3 games in a row, 4 games in a row, 5 games in a row without a proven point guard. It's just not the way this tournament works. And more important than that, you are Vescovy getting in foul trouble, one game in foul trouble, and you're going home. And so, unfortunately, yeah, it's sports, but yeah, I agree with you. I do think this, in all intents and purposes, ends the Vol season. Now they may, if I'm them, I'll play BJ Edwards as much as I can at Auburn, see what you got. But it is what it is. It's another great regular season and probably an early tournament exit. But this is one that it's idiotic to blame it on Barnes, but this is not one you can do. Moving from one injury situation, I just want to keep going back to this Alabama situation. There was now the latest, the pat down entry to the game, wherever, they introduced Brandon Miller and they did a pat down, like a frisk in the entry line, like just kind of mocking this whole situation. And I guess the question is there just no adults in the Alabama or basketball program or athletic department? Raj, I'll throw it back to you. Just kind of get your take on it before we get to the legal aspects. What do you think about just the adults in the room?
I mean, it's pretty clear that Alabama's taken on a win at all costs, reputation be damned perspective. I read that Alabama called this, quote, a group decision to allow Brandon Miller to play those 2 games, since it came out only in court testimony that he was not only on the scene, but came back to the scene and provided the weapon that was used to kill young 23-year-old mother Jamia Miller. I question University President Stuart Bell. This isn't a group decision, man. Like, this is your decision, and we've heard nothing from him. In fact, in reference to your pat down, what you just referenced and referred to, rather, Nate Oates is the only voice we've heard. The head basketball coach is running PR. In general, that's a horrible situation. Under these circumstances, it's absolutely nightmarish. And you see what happened. The first time he came out and he said, wrong place, wrong time. Horrible thing to say, backtrack same day. Then when this TSA pat down pregame happened, routine, they'd done it once before, but come on, man. They all should know better. Oates again said, my bad. This isn't a my bad situation. This is just, basically, I don't want to use that analogy, but the guy who should be making decisions and being the voice of the program and of the university hasn't said a word. So how can we not think that Alabama's selling their soul to win games?
Quick. Jane, what do you think about kind of what this looks like for just the Alabama athletic department? And like what Raj said, like, where's the university president or chancellor on this? Like, your star player brought a murder weapon, allegedly, to a teammate who allegedly or is charged with murder, and then not even a half suspension.
Yeah, like I said before, it's unbelievable, this situation. Like, how can he not be charged with anything at this point? Cover-ups have been going on in sports for decades now. This whole new last 5-10 years with social media is exposed a lot, and everyone's under a camera at all times, and word gets around, and it just seems like just another day at Alabama almost. Like, I'm not accusing them of any past cover-ups that they could have or possibly have done, but this one's in the public eye, and it's like in our face. Like, we don't really care. Like, we're gonna just move forward. Like Raj said, they're selling their soul and trying to win whatever they can and get the best out of this kid. And it's just unfortunate that the team has to go through this and the whole situation. So I don't know. I don't know what else to say. I mean, something's got to be done.
Yeah. Well, Raj and Tom, get on here. I want to talk to Raj. So we're gonna have a discussion with Raj real quick. Then Tom, I'm gonna pose a question to you. So I don't want to nerd too much out on this, but let me read. Raj, you went to law school and you made the wise decision to not practice law. But let me read you the statute. So this is accountability for behavior of another accessory. So this is the Alabama criminal statute.
Alabama.
Yes. Usually it's called accessory before the fact. They have just a different term for it. But a person is accountable for the behavior of another constituting an offense if, with the intent to promote or assist the commission of an offense, if he or she procures, induces, or causes the other person to commit the offense, and he or she aids or abets the other person in committing the offense. To me, that sounds like he can be charged if they want to. What are your thoughts hearing that statute?
Yeah, I mean, I'll just caution people that aids and abets is not taken individually. Of course, it's viewed as aid him in the commission of the crime, but it's essentially not viewed that way. It's not that literal. Procure basically legally would be to persuade or to cause. So really, it just comes down to, did Brandon Miller know, or in most states, reasonably know? I don't know what reasonably know means in Alabama. Sorry, had to. That it's not even the fact that he went back, because that's essentially what Alabama is saying, right? Like and so is Brandon Miller. I didn't know, I just went back because my buddy asked me to go back to that scene. I thought, and he can just say, I thought he needed me to pick him up or something like that. So, because this was done over phone, not via text, I believe, unless the text specifically said that he wanted, his piece, his gun, his whatever, and that's why he went back. But unless you can prove that Brandon Miller knew he wanted his gun and that's why he was going back, you can't prove anything. You can't establish anything, and they're just going to play dumb. And the law is pretty clear, and knowing that is essentially his intent, meaning that he doesn't have to know that dude was going to kill somebody or shoot a gun or maybe shoot a gun. But, he has to be aware that I am going back for the specific purpose of giving him this gun. And he already claimed that he didn't even know it was in there. So until something more is made, there's really nothing that can be done legally. And everyone's just playing dumb. And while that could be the case legally, as you know, it's just so hard to prove. And it proves the further point. Why doesn't the university president just come out and say that? He didn't know, done. Like, am I wrong here? I mean, I know that logically speaking, we all know that under the statute, his behavior, meaning Brandon Miller's, could satisfy that and create a, quote, cause of action. But as a defense attorney, what do you say?
Well, so as you know, there's a big difference between being charged with a crime and convicted of a crime. And so I think there's enough to and this is Tom, let me bring you on because I'm going to throw a hypothetical to you. I'm going to answer Roger's question and throw a hypothetical to you. You're the Pistons. You're sitting here with the third pick in the NBA draft, third or fourth, wherever you think Brandon Miller is going to go. So if I am the Tuscaloosa, whatever county that's in, or what, if I'm the Tuscaloosa PD or district attorney, and I want a conviction, or if I want a guilty plea, I should say, then I'm charging Brandon Miller also to get the guy to either roll on him or plead, and you don't want any kind of trial testimony. And so that's kind of where I'm at. So knowing that there's no statute, or essentially an infinite statute of limitations on murder charges, if you're the Pistons, look, he's an outstanding talent. Are you rolling the dice on drafting him, or are you saying too much baggage?
Looking at the Pistons situation, they're a very young team. Lots of potential moving down, the next year or so. So with looking at that, I don't think they touch him for that simple fact. They don't need any situation where he comes to the team, they have chemistry, then boom, there's charges, or any just kind of bad press brought to a team that's very young. Sometimes that's going to affect how teams gel and how teams perform, and I don't think Troy Weaver looks at this as something that he wants to bring into a locker room. That, let's face it, I think the oldest guy they have on that team is like 27 or 28. So uh, knowing what they have right now, lots of young talent that could potentially go on a nice run in the next 3 years, we'll say. I don't bring a player in that potentially is looking at charges. And then also you look at it this way, the way he's kind of handled himself after being put in the spotlight with the pat down during the announcement. I think that's a character flaw, and that's a big problem that a general manager will look at and say, does this guy really take life serious? If he's kind of making jokes about the situation here. So for that reason, and then the fact that bad press, I don't see any situation where he comes to Detroit, because it could be something that could disrupt flow, especially with a team filled with a roster of young guys that have been in the league for 2 to 3 years.
Yeah, and I've taken plenty of depositions of people that, whether it be, hey, I fell asleep at the wheel, or I thought it was a green light or whatever, and that have either done something that later, whether it was a death on the scene or person went to the hospital and died later, and they're devastated. They really are. It really bothers them, and you can tell when you talk to them and when you depose them and those kind of things. I just don't see any of that with anybody with this Alabama program, and I'm just like, a young lady, a young mother lost her life. A child is going to grow up without a mother, and no one seems to care, and that's just disturbing. But we'll move on. We could talk about this. It's just tragic, and I just can't let it slip my head. It's there with me. But if you've enjoyed the show, we're almost at the halfway point. If you could take a little bit of time and scroll down and give us a thumbs up, subscribe to the podcast. If you want to comment on things we do well, we don't do well, things we can improve on, we're always willing to listen. We appreciate everyone's feedback. So thank you for that. So it is officially March on Wednesday. I guess yesterday was March the 1st. And so it's bubble time, guys. The NCAA tournament is around the corner. I think Selection Sunday is next Sunday. And we will be having a special show during the Selection Sunday. We will be breaking it down. We have some bubble teams. I think Raj's Trojan they may still be on the bubble. And then we have Michigan, who is currently the first 4 out. And then Ohio State is oddly ranked high in KenPom, but I think they are out. Tennessee safely in. But so as the only team that, or as the team that is right there on the bubble, the closest, Tom, let's talk about your Michigan Wolverines.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's been a roller coaster season this year, we'll say. Very inconsistent, led by Hunter Dickinson, who probably did himself a disservice by not going pro 2 years ago. And so I don't see him going anywhere more than Europe, which, he'll probably make a lot of money there. But so there are the first 4 out, basically, on a lot of people's bubble list. They lose a heartbreaker tonight in double overtime down in Champaign against what my wife calls the Fighting Illini, would be the Fighting Illini. 91-87, crazy second half. They're down by 12. They fight to a lead late in the second half, and then they end up squandering it. So it at this point, with this loss tonight, I think that pretty much solidifies their out, unless they make some noise in the Big Ten tournament, which it's possible. The Big Ten's really down this year. Obviously, it's the SEC of basketball. Around here, we like to consider that, and they just haven't lived up to the conference hasn't lived up to its name much this year. So if they can find a way to make some noise in this tournament, little cut, love you, babe. I think they can get in, and I think the only way they get in is if they get to the finals or win it outright. But other than that, I don't see them getting in, and this loss pretty much solidifies it for them. Unfortunately, I think they were down and out a couple times this year, and they fought back, and today's loss is probably the nail in the coffin for them.
Hey, Christina just gets wife of the year. She's probably the only wife watching our show right now.
She needs a good distraction too.
Yeah, so thank you for watching. So Raj, USC, it's projected to be a 10 seed at the moment. They have Arizona at home. That's a win and you're in, you're good. But then a dangerous Arizona State team coming out back after that, which that could, if USC loses to Arizona, the winner of that game, USC Arizona State, that could be the team going.
Yeah, man. By the way, my bet your nuts would have been Arizona State plus 11.5 at UCLA. Right now it's 31-28 UCLA, but Arizona State was awoken from the dead on that 60-foot, half-foot buzzer beater at Arizona. SC did beat ASU at ASU, and they beat them handily. It's kind of funny. They were actually up like 24 very late, and Arizona State scored like 13 or 14 points with under 2 minutes left. And I said at the time, like, if this matters, all the people in the world are going to see are that score. And the game wasn't even that close. They were killing them. But that doesn't matter. Now what matters is ASU. And yeah, if it comes down to that, it's one game. And anything can happen, especially with 18-year-olds. For USC, if they beat Arizona tonight, I think they're solidly in. Ken Palm 32, they are one of the best, like Tennessee, defensive teams in the country, whether it be when it comes to the metrics and statistically and defensive efficiency and blah, blah, blah. They could be better at perimeter defense, but inside the three-point line, I think they were number 2 in the country at defensive efficiency. Some good wins, some narrow losses, including to a very good Tennessee team, probably at their peak. You were there in the Bahamas, but, moral victories don't get you in. So I would hope they can win tonight. It's a bad matchup with a very tall, experienced Arizona team. And if they do, I think they're in. Otherwise, they have to beat ASU and probably get 1 or 2 in the Pac-12 tourney, lose both, and you got to make the finals. And that's just the reality.
Yeah, the Trojans gave the Vols all they could handle, went to overtime. The only time they were really challenged in the Bahamas, because the Kansas game was never close, and neither was the Butler game. And so, yeah, the Trojans, I walked away impressed. They have length, and if I'm not mistaken, that was without one of the 5 stars that has now been playing.
Yeah, Vince Awokchu, he's a 5-star center. He basically is the epitome of everything you said. Tennessee still would have won. He's a raw kid, but yeah, he changes the game. They're 9-1 since he's been back in the lineup, and we're still finding out how good he can be.
Yep. All right. So Brandon, I've got a question for you. So as a casual college basketball fan, which most of America is now, it's pretty much the tournament. This time of year, you'll start to tune in. So on the bubble, so we got last 4 in, next 4 out. So the first one out is North Carolina, and one of the last 4 in is Boise State. Would you rather see the North Carolina get in and see if they can make a run, or do you want to see, hey, let's let some of the more teams that don't get in often, or do you want the big names even in the high seeds and see if they can make a run, or do you just I just want kind of chaos?
I don't mind the big names getting in if they deserve it. Obviously, they've got a big game Saturday against Duke. If they can pull that off, I think they're in. But like you said, as a casual fan, you just want to see March Madness at its greatest. And that's the greatest thing about March Madness is there's buzzer beaters all over the place. And we've actually gotten a little bit of a preview of that within probably the last 2 weeks or 3 weeks of college basketball. There's been some buzzer beaters that are eerie similar to March Madness. So looking forward to that. I always love March Madness. If you ever get a chance to go to Vegas and do March Madness, it's one of the best times in Vegas. So for all you fans out there, it's a great time. But no, I just like seeing good basketball. I like seeing buzzer beaters. I like betting on the games. I like just watching, these kids compete, all the heart, and no one ever gives up. I mean, 15 seconds left on the clock, down by 10, and somehow they come back and win. Like those are the games that you want to see. So always look forward to March Madness. I will definitely be watching closely, especially now I've started tuning in. So looking forward to it.
Yeah, it is. It's my favorite time of the year, the tournament. Even though I have heartbreak after heartbreak after heartbreak, but such is life. I'm looking forward to that. And then one thing that we're gonna shift now to we're not talked about our March Madness special, but I'm gonna shift to kind of what's going on behind the scenes that I find very interesting and exciting, and probably the first time in at least the last decade, maybe longer, that I've been excited about baseball. The new rule changes, the pitch clock, the hitters having to be set. I think it's 8 seconds beforehand. The no more shifting. I'm excited about baseball, and I'm not your typical baseball fan. So I'm going to turn it over to Raj first. You talk about it, then Raj, when you're finished, shifts over to Tom, who y'all are 2 biggest baseball fans. Tell us what you guys think about the new rules. Are you excited? Do you want it to be more freedom? I know going to minor league games here, the Lookouts, I love the pitch clock. Love it.
Yeah, I'll let Tom tackle more of the pitch clock. As a Dodger fan, the shift has been a huge issue with a lot of left-handed hitters. This Freddie Freeman now, oddly enough, though, Freddie Freeman, for you Braves fans also, is such an amazing left-handed hitter that he's not top 10, I believe, in hitters affected by the switch. Like, it doesn't matter to him. But as a Dodger fan, what I was referencing was a guy, Corey Seager, who statistically still hit 275 over the last 3 years, but has had the most amount of hits taken from him due to the shift at 58 over that time. In 2013, 4% of plate appearances saw the switch. Last year, it was 31.4%, a record high. MLB talks about the game and how kids and people need to identify with it. And, you know, just as a purist watching the game and growing up and playing RBI, and even I'm old as hell, so Nintendo Baseball, could you imagine pressing the shift button or, you know, pulling a ball as a lefty and a second baseman moves into right field and gets you out? Like, that would suck. And I'd put in Tecmo Bowl, dude. Like, it's not baseball. And when they're trying to be more fan friendly, it's not a coincidence the same year as the pitch clock rule, the shift rule comes into play. I mean, batting averages across the league went from like 250 to 240, 243 in the last like X amount of years. And people think, it's not that much. It's actually a ton when you think about all the guys in the league. And basically, you know, it translates to an unwatchable game. And, you know, pitchers are affected as well. You think about that. Like guys like, I think Johnny Cueto, Logan Webb were the two pitchers that were that benefited the most from the switch. Think about those teams that paid them millions of dollars, like San Francisco, for both of them, ironically enough. And I won't shed any tears, but it's just crazy how much is affected by like a glitch in the game, if for lack of a better expression. And I'm glad it's gone.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those situations where, you know, baseball has kind of slipped away. It's not America's pastime like it used to be many years ago. But I'm not really sure how these rule changes are going to really help the game. Obviously, with the shift being taken away, it's going to provide more offense, and obviously that's what MLB wants, more offense, because that's what people want. Offense, you know, scoring brings in more, you know, viewership, which has been down, and sales at the gates have been down. So this is definitely a way to bring in the non-baseball fan. And like Robbie said, he's excited for baseball and he's not a baseball fan. So interesting enough that the rule changes might just bring in the you know, casual, hey, it's a nice summer night, let's go to the ball game type of person. So, and as far as the pitch clock goes, it's going to be interesting because there's already been some issues in the spring training where the batter's been called out because he didn't you know, he was not in the box when he needed to be, which it's going to make the game more cerebral for the hitter. Instead of them, you know, trying to guess what pitch is coming, they're going to have to really focus on, I got to get back in the box. And so it's more of a chess match for the players. Is it going to affect gameplay? I think it will. I think you're going to see some sloppiness early on. And I don't expect it to get kind of hemmed in until at least the All-Star break, when, you know, people are really focused in on it. Because, you know, just like football, when they, you know, they changed kind of the rules that the quarterbacks, where defenders can't hit the quarterback, you know, it had to change the mindset of the defensive player. Like, hey, you can't hit the quarterback. Now as a hitter, you know, part of the mental game of getting into the batter's box was, I'm going to call timeout. I'm going to step out of the box. Now you can't do that. So you're really looking at a situation where the pitcher might have a little bit more of an advantage, but they have a pitch count. So they're thinking too. So I think the baseball purists are going to look at it as, this is, you know, nonsense, and you're taking away from the gloriness of the game. But let's face it, sports are driven by viewership, by tickets purchased. And when that's been down the last few years, and football's reigned supreme, baseball needs to find a way to get themselves back on the market. And these rule changes, and frankly, I'm excited about the fact that you can't shift, because I thought shift took away from the sanctity of the game, we'll say. I just thought it cheapened the game, and now that that's gone, we're going to see some more run production, and I'm as a baseball purist, as I like to consider myself, I love baseball. I love my Tigers there, even though they're going to probably break the record in losses this year. I love it. I'm looking forward to what that's going to do for baseball this year. So
Yeah, I agree, and I think it's going to help speed up the game, and it's going to help make things more exciting. It's no longer going to be home run or bust or home run or strikeout. It's going to be, hey, there's a gap in here, or the first baseman's playing here, and then the second baseman they got to play for the steal or double play. There's going to be a gap instead of there being three infielders on one side. I think it's all good, and yes, it's about bringing people back to the game. So, for instance, Fontana in NASCAR this weekend, I'm always going to find my NASCAR plug. Fontana was sold out this weekend in a very, very, very cold Southern California weekend. And for people that have lived in Southern California, they don't like the cold. But for there to be that many people there, NASCAR was the first sport to come back after the COVID shutdown. And it got eyes on because they were doing game and play. And that excitement just for something to watch breeds fandomhood. And then this baseball's got a chance now to win back some people that used to like baseball but stopped. And so I think this is a great thing. Like I said, person who mostly goes to minor league games, I love the pitch clock. Let's get in and out of here. Let's shift from baseball to baseball's changing as a sport to try to keep up with the sport that is dominating. Already on the radio, you're still talk about Aaron Rodgers, what he's going to do, what the Jets going to do. Let's talk about the combines going on right now. The Bears. Is any one of y'all going to take a quarterback and trade Justin Fields, or all of y'all just saying, hey, no, we're the Bears. We are trading, getting as much picks as we can. Shane, we'll start with you. What are you doing if you're the Bears at number one?
It's a tough decision. Personally, I don't mind the trade if they do that. You've got a somewhat of a proven commodity. You kind of know what you're working with. And yeah, he's been slow to progress, but he had a pretty decent season last year. So, you're taking risks on these college guys, doing all the measurables, trying to figure out, what the perfect quarterback's going to be for the stats, and that necessarily isn't the case. So I don't mind them trading and trying to actually get some weapons around Fields or some offensive line, trying to help him out and actually make him succeed. So that doesn't bother me. I mean, there's tons of people that would trade. Top four in my eyes. Colts are kind of on the fence because they do have the 4 pick, but they're anxious to get a quarterback. I don't see them trying to bring back in another veteran, and they've been that road too many times, and it's just not worked. So Colts, Panthers, Raiders, Falcons, those are all within the top 8. I think those guys could make a trade up. They've got the capital to do so and make it a little bit more interesting. But I don't mind the trade for the Bears, but I also see the other side. Fields has been slow to get to the game, and he played well last year, but you look at what they've put around him, he hasn't really been in a place to succeed. So the Bears quarterback situation for the last 5 years, 8 years has been atrocious. So it's tough to see.
Yeah, I mean, the thing, if you're the Bears, you passed on Mahomes to get Trubisky.
They traded up to get Trubisky, which is no one even was looking at Trubisky, and they traded up to get, which they could have got at the same spot. They were like, what, 6th pick or 7th pick that year? They could have got Trubisky at that pick. It was the worst trade up I've ever seen.
You won't see anything that dumb at our fantasy football draft. That's how dumb it was.
Yeah, exactly.
So, Tom, you're familiar with teams screwing up the quarterback position. Look, so you're Chicago. It's in your division. They took Fields, the number one pick, 2 or 3 years ago, and here they are back at the number one pick, which leads you to believe things aren't working out. So what do you do if you have the Bears pick? Do you go with Young, Clout? What do you do? Raj, we'll hit you the same question.
I mean, dude, to me, it's not even a question. Justin Fields had 17 TDs and 11 picks. He was the number 7 overall rusher in the NFL, 1,143 yards, a total of 25 touchdowns, I think, with one of the worst offensive lines ever. Compound that with a team with almost $100 million in cap space. Like, the next closest team is Atlanta at 66 million. The Raiders are third around 46 million. They can buy and sell anybody, like whatever they want. Didn't sound good, but and it's a good free agency when it comes to both lines. Definitely defensive line. Last year, the Bears tried to sign Larry Ogunjobi. I can never pronounce his name. Dude failed his physical, so they're a bit hesitant. This year, there's Ashawn Robinson, Deron Payne. There's a number of dudes. Hargrave across the defensive front they can sign. Offensive line, Orlando Brown Jr. from KC. They can trade. They traded away Mack and Roquan Smith. So they don't have a ton on that team. Really terrible in the trenches. On top of that, you got their number one receiver was Darnell Mooney, and he had 493 yards. Cole Kmet, the tight end, was their overall leading receiver with like 55 catches for like 500 yards. Long story short, you got Fields doing all this stuff with no offensive line, no receivers. Get him help and get it now, because he could die based on the amount of times he was sacked. And that's considering all their bootlegs, all their play calling, his escapability. They've got money. There's a lot of free agents. They don't have a ton of draft capital yet. Spend your money where you need it. Get more draft capital by trading down, because there's roughly, 10 teams that will do anything for a great quarterback. If they stay there, they get what? Will Anderson, and that's it. Maybe Jalen Carter before the recent news that I won't get into. You can, as the resident attorney. But, dude, you are in prime position and have all the leverage. Use your money. Get more picks. Get better.
All right, Tom, let me pose this question to you. Yeah. Something that I heard. So if you're Detroit, and my crooked glasses bother me. So if you're if you're Chicago, you have had, what's his quarterback's name?
Justin Fields.
You've had Fields for 3 years. His rookie clock is now coming to an end. You're about to have to pay him or get rid of him. Wouldn't it be better just to start over on that rookie clock, get a new rookie deal, say take Bryce Young, trade Fields, get some picks for him? Now you have 3 years with Young and see, does this work out better?
I see where you're coming from, and that does make sense, because it looks like maybe Fields has a year or two left on his rookie deal, so it's kind of put up or shut up for him. But like Raj said, the draft capital that they could potentially get, and if I can go back to my lovable Leos, the Lions, and how they've been able to kind of build the last couple of years, it's been on draft capital. And knowing that there's so many teams that are dying for a quarterback, and this being a very quarterback friendly draft, there's going to be a war between these teams for how much can they give up. And Chicago's just going to sit back and wait for the best offer. And they're going to get a good offer because people want Bryce Young, people want CJ Stroud, and for some reason people want Will Levis. So it's like, yeah, there's a potential for them to get the next quarterback just in case. But I think as a Chicago Bear, looking at it as a fan, they don't want to sit back and rely on, another quarterback coming in and the what if. They got some good production out of Justin Fields this year. So I think as a fan, that's something to build off. And now they just have to build around them. And there's good defensive players that they can go and get. And Chicago's, well known for their defense. So if they get back to brass taxes and their bread and butter, that's something that they can do with picking up some draft capital, moving down, and then building later in rounds like the Lions did. So I definitely feel like that is a situation where they're gonna wait to the last minute to get the best deal, and they have the leverage. And if they don't get the right deal, then they bring in and get the right player. Which, is it a quarterback? We'll see. Is it Jalen Carter? Who knows what's the future with him looks like. But I see the Bears trading down and getting a lot of draft capital. So, that's probably what they'll end up doing.
All right, boys, good conversation. It's time for it. Tom, roll it.
It's time for Bet Your Nuts. Brought to you by RiverCity-Media.
All right, so Bet Your Nuts pick or time. We are going to give you our picks for the weekend or whatever sporting events coming up. I wouldn't say it's necessarily a guarantee, but it's as close as you can come to it in the sports gambling world. Brandon, we will start with you. What you got for us this week?
I'm going to stick with the golf, man. I'm hot on that right now. Fan favorite is Rahm right now. Incredible finish today. He finished eagle, birdie, and he's, of course, leading the pack again today at 7 under. So that's too much juice for my blood. So I'm going to look down a little bit further. Another golfer who's been playing really well as of late is Max Homa. And it's not great odds, but it's pretty good. He's plus 170 to finish in the top 10. I think he finished 2 or 3 under today. So I like that bet. This is one of those top 50 have to play in, new PGA setting. So you've got some good competition there, but Max Homa's been on fire as of late. So I like him to finish in top 10 for plus 170.
All right, Raj, we'll go to you next. What do you got this week for us?
Bro, I had a stone cold lock. It was Longwood against Campbell in the Big South quarterfinals. Tomorrow, Campbell's getting 5.5 points. Longwood beat them by 27 at Campbell and 24 at home or something. But I think Longwood just barely beat 1-16 in Conference Presbyterian. So I guess Longwood has a big injury. Obviously, I didn't prepare much for this segment. So I don't know why Longwood's only a 5.5 point favorite against a crappy Campbell team, but that's my Bet Your Nuts. Not my nuts. Maybe my neutered dog's nuts, but that's what I'm going with.
And that, boys and girls, is what you call reckless speculation. Tom, what do you got for us?
This week I'm going to go to Sin City where NASCAR is heading, and I'm looking at the last 10 races. This is my brain work. This is my philosophy. I always look back the last 10 races. And who's been successful in the last 10 races? Well, no, none other than Joey Logano has 3 victories in the last 10 races in Las Vegas. So Logano is sitting at a plus 800. Go Logano, big time. Which, side note, my bet your nuts last week, it hit. So my philosophy worked last week. Let's see if it continues to roll this week. So Logano plus 800, book it.
I am also going to Sin City. I'm going to give you a car, but with slightly better odds, who has also been successful here in the past. And that's the thing with NASCAR. Look at what cars, owners, drivers have been successful because they're good on these size tracks. I am going Truex Jr., number 19, and he is going off at 12-1. I think he won in the Coliseum and has shown okay. I think he brings it back to the green flag, the checkered flag, I should say, on in Vegas. So I like Truex Jr. Got Kyle Busch last weekend, and then also got the Xfinity driver. So feeling good on NASCAR bets this season so far. With that, so we are at 1 hour and 1 minute. So we're gonna get us out of here. I will start with my final thoughts, and then I'll let you guys wrap up. This month, March, it is a time to enjoy the kids play sports. So the tournaments, the conference tournaments, the NCAA tournament, it's just a great time to see what was once amateurism. Now it's a little bit, semi-pro, but it's good to just for the love of the game and see the fans and see everything. I just love this time of the year, and then rolls over to the Masters coming up quickly. So as much as we all love football season, there's a lot to enjoy in the spring. It's getting warm in Tennessee. So I'm just looking forward to this time of the year and what it comes to bring. And good meeting Tom over the weekend. Good to make new friendships, and his wife Christina, and also hope you guys find the dog.
Thanks, Robbie. That means a lot. And it was definitely great meeting you and Brandon. Unfortunately, didn't meet Raj. It wasn't in the cards. Maybe next time. But my final words are all the talk earlier this year in the NBA was LeBron eclipsing Kareem Abdul-Jabbar for the points record. But I'm going to go no further than downtown Detroit, the University of Detroit Mercy, Antoine Davis, who's on the verge of breaking the NCAA points record held by Pistol Pete Maravich. So UAD doesn't get much pub, obviously, in the Horizon League, a lower Division I, school. But it's a big deal. It's a big record held by one of the greatest point guards to ever play not only college basketball but NBA. So around here, it's a big deal. Tonight he fell 3 points short. He needed 25. He got 22. But my final words are, this small school that doesn't get a lot of pub, now it's getting some pub with Antoine Davis, and looks like he'll get it in the next game, which is really cool for the conference. It's really good for the school. So it's Antoine Davis 3 points short of the overall points record for the NCAA held by Pistol Pete Maravich. So I'll kick it over to Brandon.
Yeah, so bring it back a little bit. I am a fan of the pitch count in MLB. I know I didn't get to speak on that. Not a huge baseball guy like these guys, but I'm a fan of the pitch count. Saves roughly 25 minutes or so of just nothing, like pitchers walking around the mound, batters, strapping up their gloves. It's just, a waste of time. So I'm a fan of that. I am not a fan of the switch change. Like, I did like the switch rule. Like, it forces a hitter to, change his style a little bit and actually, show a little bit more athleticism, in my opinion. Now, I get the purists love, the old rules where go back, you can't switch. Get that. Anyway, I'll get off the soapbox. That and looking forward to March Madness. This is when I tune in to basketball, college basketball, kind of like playoffs in MLB and, World Series. So big time, big things ahead. And as Robbie mentioned, we got the players coming up next week, and then the Masters is not too far around the corner. So looking forward to some golf.
My final thoughts are regarding Alabama. As an Indian American and with a father who's a doctor and a sister who's a doctor, I knew one thing, despite my solid weighted GPA and somehow getting into the number 7 public school in America, flex. That's UC San Diego. The USC thing is a different story, but that I didn't want to be a doctor. And I got a full ride to the University of Cincinnati for law school. So I was like, why not? When I was there, the president of the university, when it comes to everything, including PR, was Bob Huggins, the basketball coach. Segue, Alabama. Nate Oates apparently is the president of the university. He is the one making decisions, poor decisions. He is the figurehead of the school. When asked by the president, Stuart Bell, they said it was, quote, a group decision and about Brandon Miller playing. And to me, it's analogous, and I think it's a horrible analogy, but it's the one I wanted to end with, of a firing squad that, at everyone, no one wants to be the individual responsible for anything, let alone a bad decision that could blow up in their face. And it's one person's job, and that's the university president. And when he's mute, and everything, all of the above, what's that tell you? It means there are other things more important at the university than, number one, academics and the university president, what he should stand for. But number two, and I don't want to make the stretch, too far of a stretch, but doing what's right. So it's just hard not to think Bama is selling their soul for wins. And I think that's the pervasive thought around the country.
Yes, I agree, and that's well said. And it's going to be a theme that keeps getting louder and louder as they progress in the Final Four. And we don't want a Final Four about that. Side note, before we go off, what is that whiteboard behind you? What all kind of thoughts do you have on that thing?
Who, me?
Yeah.
Oh, when you leave the legal field and you get into medical sales, if you don't write something down immediately, this side is what Stephanie tells me.
Yeah.
Like I have to do, because if I don't write it down, it's donezo. Game over. So it's everything that I need to do. Otherwise, I get really in trouble.
That's quite a system and quite a unstable writing pattern you have there.
Oh, story of my life, dude. If you want to get a better shot, what's even worse is I actually have 2 others in my office that you'll see, 1 and 2.
Hey, I'm a big whiteboard fan.
Yeah.
I have a couple of my
This
office.
is it's just for my brain.
And one more question before we get off. Where do you keep your clock?
Clock?
In his pocket.
I told you I'm on IST, which for our listeners is Indian Standard Time, which is an hour and a half after whatever you are told to be there or be at. That's IST. So,
oh boy,
whenever the squeaky wheel gets grease, an hour and a half later.
All right. Well, everyone, thank you for listening. It's been great as always. We'll be back this time next week and Sunday after that. So tune in next week. We will have some heartbreak at the early conference tournament games, some previews at the end.
Are we doing a selection show or something like that?
Yes.
Dude, I don't know. I've told you I haven't looked at my clock.
We are also debating a intro to Google Docs for Raj.
Yeah. We'll keep you posted, Raj.
Yeah, I'll send you a YouTube training video on
What's
Google Docs.
What is this Google you speak of?
You said docs. Hey, my family was all doctors, but I am not a docs. What is docs?
Oh, all right. Thanks, everyone.
Cultural appropriation.
See you next week, everyone.
See you guys.
Thanks for listening to River City Media's own Reckless Speculation. Don't forget to like and follow us on Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, and YouTube, searching Reckless Speculation. And catch us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. We look forward to catching you right here next week with another exciting episode of Reckless Speculation.